I'm delighted at long last we are together in glorious Technicolor and 3D. We have a very busy programme of events over the next couple of days, so my intention this morning is to hand over to our speakers so we can start a session in good time and provide ample opportunity for you to ask questions of our panel.
I think it's only fitting that APSE, an organisation which is steeped in encouraging both excellence and innovation in service delivery, has chosen Birmingham to host its annual event. Our city is often referred to as the birthplace of municipalism. Joseph Chamberlain, of course, back in the 1870s, recognised the real importance of local authorities taking responsibility for services like water, parks and libraries. And he set an example that was latterly followed by other towns and cities, laying the foundations for the kind of local government that we all know and work in today.
The last decade as well, as Brigid has alluded to, we've had really tough times. Austerity has come along at a time that's probably hasn't helped with multiple public policy crises we've faced around housing, around elderly care and slow economic growth as well. And then COVID comes along to top it all off, really. So it's been a real tough time, and that's impacted on opportunity for people and the quality of life of people as well. It's meant an uneven distribution of resources and life chances across the country. And the public are really unwilling to accept that status quo anymore. They want something better. We're seeing social movements spring up across the country to say the system isn't really delivering for me and I'm not happy about it. Our view is that local government at its best can play an integral role in lifting those life chances for people from all communities in a real even-handed way and in a fair way. And we need that because we need to respond to climate change. Digitalisation's moving at pace, and more immediately, COVID recovery. So that's local government roles needed more than ever in a rapidly changing world.
Pick the bits that you can advocate very quickly without rambling like I do or like Paul does about stuff in general. Find some sharp, edgy bits that you can communicate to your MPs to make sure that they go back into Westminster with the "we want to be a local champion" message, and explain to them why it's for their benefit. You know, they look after the same people we do. We've only got one bloody country. We all look after the same people. It's in all of our interests to deliver services the way we want. And we've seen it it's post-Brexit or post-COVID. I don't know who's going to get the blame for it, but we can't get lorry drivers. Well, that don't matter. We don't drive lorries as councils. But everything we do has got vehicles attached to it, isn't it? Can't get dustmen for love nor money. Can't get dust cart drivers for love nor money. Great. We're now actually going to start recognising that people who work and earn a living with their hands are worth more to our community than we've ever done. And that's a good message to take out. But that will impact on all of us. We'll all have big wage rises coming for our manual staff, for our care staff. Where's that money going to come from then? The Treasury have got to find the money one way or another, or let us have financial freedoms locally to make sure that we can find the money locally.
And we've also talked about inclusive growth, because this economic model that we've been following for years now doesn't focus on well-being. It doesn't focus on the things that are important to many of our people on a day-to-day basis. That needs to change. We need to have more ability in our local areas to grow our local economies, to make sure that they're right for our local people. And there is something now, and we've talked a bit about social care today, about the importance of the foundational economy, about that economy which supports people to have the very best life they possibly can, and what that means for the people who work in that economy as well.
We're here today, we're gone tomorrow, we bring our gift, we build for the future. I want you to think about that role you've got in your life, that the role that you're playing in your life, in the here and now, as you're in senior positions within your organisations. What's the legacy you're leaving? When I'm asked to describe what success is, I describe success as the life you lead, the lessons you learn, and the legacy you leave. The life you lead, the lessons you learn, the legacy you leave. Some of you are younger than me and some of you are older than me. When you get to my sort of age, stuff begins to happen. I've had a couple of knock, you ain't here forever. So I really understand now that I've got to leave my legacy. What's the legacy you are leaving? The poem's called Dream Big. Okay. Dream big. If ever there's a time to dare to make a difference, to embark on something worth doing, that time is now. Not for any grand cause necessarily, but for something that tugs at your heart. Something that's your dream, your aspiration. For you owe it to yourself to make these days here count. So dig deep. Have fun. Stretch. And dream big.
I hope you've all had a very refreshing, nice lunch. I'm Councillor Andrea Lewis. I'm the Joint Deputy Leader of Swansea Council. I'll be chairing the session this afternoon on sustainable and greener local neighbourhood services, which is a particular passion of mine.
So a good example of how we've applied performance management in the East Riding is on our waste journey. And this slide shows over a 16-year period an improvement in performance from sending 120,000 tonnes of waste to landfill all the way through, doing very similar things no doubt yourselves are doing in your communities, increasing the recycling rates, taking food waste, for example, and then moving into fortnightly collections and sending waste for incineration. And then by the end of 2017, 2018, we moved from a 14% recycling rate in the East Riding to one that is 64%. And that put us into the top 3, whereas 15 years ago, we were 279th worst council for recycling in the country. This year, we're close to 67%. So that performance is increasing every year for us.
For our wildlife, here we're looking at new sites for woodlands, both on the council's land, but also working with landowners and parish councils to create new habitats. We're also delivering on the green in Colchester policy. The policy was established and agreed in 2020, and it committed to stopping the use of glyphosate-based products through a phased approach on council land, and the officers have been trying lots of different other ways to manage weed growth. In addition, the policy also set out to stop and reduce grass cutting in specific areas, the intention being that changing the management regime would improve biodiversity and the visual amenity of the grass verges, also enabling the council to manage these to either be left to rewild or be developed as wildflower areas and left to naturalise as woodland. So across 14 different spaces, about 1.5 hectares in total have been left to naturalise, with the potential to establish just over 4,500 trees over the next 10 years naturally.
Do we know what's in the local plan and it's been allocated? One of the things we're coming across at the moment already, we're finding out is that we probably haven't got sufficient land to plant the trees. So we're now actually going outside to market to try and find arable land or different places where we could actually do that. In the local plan, it may have allocations already for solar farms, wind farms. Let's understand what that's about. Is there something allocated there for carbon offsetting through tree planting? It's a good point to start from in terms of what's already in place. Just a little bit there around the White Rose Forest for us. As I said, we're going to cover 17.5% of the region by 2048. It's a huge challenge, I'll be honest with you. There's no point in me standing in and saying this is going to be a breeze, because it isn't going to be a breeze. And what I find in terms of a lot of the climate action plans is it needs us all to do it together. And something I'm keen about there is from us is that as an APSE family, we should be working with each other in terms of trying to find some of these solutions, because there's one thing for sure is I'm not going to stand in and say I know all the answers.
Other things they can do, but going back to stress that there can be costs involved in this. Separate collections. We've gone out to consultation again on the proposed policy of consistency, getting a consistent way of categorising waste across England for recycled collections, and that will help presumably lift recycling rates and get more biodegradable waste from landfill as soon as possible, as indeed will widening out waste food collection from households, a separate waste food collection. And also linking into all that, ensuring there's sufficient recycling, AD, composting capacity, etc. to help, and that can also mean that we don't necessarily have to put more of this stuff through energy from waste, which can create quite a lot of emissions in its own right.